you mentioned, I believe Wycliffe or perhaps Tyndale, they coined phrases.
Yeah.
Like scapegoat and Jehovah, Passover and stuff. Could you explain what that means? Like, certainly you don't mean that they invented those concepts. How do you mean they coined the phrase?
Well, okay, to deal with the first one, Jehovah, I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, like for the Jewish people, those 4 letters are the sacred name for God, and it's called a Hashem, the name. Nobody really knows how to pronounce it because they stopped pronouncing it since we don't know when, because of a fear of breaking the commandment to take the name of the Lord your God in vain. What the scribes did was that later on in the Middle Ages, when they began to introduce vowels into the Masoretic text, basically putting dots over the consonants, they put the dots or the vowels for the name Adonai over this word. Even though this word isn't Adonai, they introduced the vowels for Adonai because when a Jewish scribe or lecturer was reading the Old Testament, when he came across this word, he wouldn't pronounce it because of its sacredness. Instead, he would just say Lord, Adonai. And that's what we do in most modern translations. We put Lord in uppercase letters. When you see that, it isn't actually translating the word Lord. That's Adonai in Hebrew. It's translating this word, the Hashem. What Tyndale did was he kind of combined the vowels of Adonai with the consonants of the Hashem and came up with a new word, Jehovah. It's the mixture of Adonai and the Hashem together. So he did invent that word in a sense. That word didn't exist in English. Tyndale put that together himself. So in a sense he coined a new phrase. Passover. It's a dynamic translation. Pasa doesn't literally mean that in a sense, but he took the meaning of that word and coined a phrase that explained it, the passing over of the angel of death. Atonement, like Kippur, doesn't mean at one ment. That's a phrase that Tyndale put together. Kippur just means covering. So the Day of Atonement in English really is directly taken from Tyndale's input there, and that's a dynamic translation. That it's a dynamic attempt to explain what the word meant theologically. So it's an at-one-ment, basically speaking of the reconciliation between God and man. And so those were phrases that he put together himself. Scapegoat is a tricky one because most modern translations don't use scapegoat anymore. They just directly reproduce this word as Azil, which is, we're not really sure exactly what it meant. Tyndale was going on the writings of some rabbis and the Septuagint when he was making that word together. Scapegoat literally means, the escape goat, the goat that was left free. So these were words that he, translating from the Hebrew, took the meaning of them and basically put together a word that he saw was explaining them as best they could. Yeah. Some of those are still used today, others are dropped, like scapegoat from the ESV.
Yeah. I was preaching in Germany about the Passover.
Yeah.
And they don't call it Passover there. And I was explaining something like, we don't use that word.
Yeah, sure.
We don't have the concept,
Or mercy seat. I mean, that's in the Russian Bible, it's just a lid. And that's literally what it is. But there's an attempt to maybe explain in a deep level what it is. So these words that we use quite commonly, they were coined by people like Tyndale. Any other questions there?